Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines where Valerie Cox is our guest. She is the Louisiana Program Director for MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. That program has saved since 1980 over 300,000 lives from drunk driving. It's also implemented in all 50 states the use of ignition locks when you get busted for drinking and driving. It's also teaching our kids, don't drink and drive, even if you're 21. So join us on the next Legal Lines with MAD's Director, Valerie Cox.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith and I have a Legal Lines tip for you. Remember, knowledge is power. And I want you to know if you're injured, Louisiana law grants you a variety of claims to make sure you're fully compensated. It's generally chopped up into several categories, the first being general damages. That's going to compensate you for your mental and physical pain and suffering, your scarring, disability, functional limitations, your loss of enjoyment of life. Also, it will compensate your family, frankly, for your loss of affection. It's called loss of consortium claim. Next category is specific damages. Those would be, say, for example, past and future lost wages, past and future medical expenses. You also have a claim sometimes for what's called punishment damages or punitive damages, typically only available when you're injured by a drunk party. Finally, you're entitled to legal interest from the date you file your lawsuit until you're paid and court costs. So my Legal Lines tip to you from me, Locke Meredith, make sure you know what your claims are.
This has been Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. I'm pleased to have on the show Valerie Cox. She is the Program Director for the state of Louisiana for Mothers Against Drunk Driving, better known as MAD. Valerie, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you coming in and kind of educating folks. And it's timely, as you and I have discussed. You got the high school proms cranking up and
Correct.
graduations and spring break and all the fun that goes along with all that stuff. But usually it also means a lot of drunk driving.
It does,
and it also
unfortunately.
means a lot of deaths of minors.
Yes.
I think
yes.
the material I was reading said 4,300 minors a year are
That
killed.
is correct. 4,300 minors a year are killed due to drinking and driving. A lot of times there are passengers in the car with friends, and it happens, and that's why we were founded by Candy Leiter, whose 13-year-old daughter was killed by a drunk driver in 1980. And our mission is to eliminate drunk driving, to support the victims of these violent crimes, and to prevent underage drinking. So we work to try to get the message out to the public. If you're under 21, we don't want you to drink and drive.
And it's illegal.
Correct, is illegal. And to those that are over 21, our message to them is, if drinking is going to be part of your activity, to have a designated plan in place. Have a designated driver. We have Uber, we have Lyft. There's many resources out there
Right.
that you can use.
Or sleep in your car
Hey,
if you
that
have
too.
to. But don't get in and
Don't
drive.
get behind the wheel. We're not saying not to drink. We're not trying to prohibit anyone from having fun or having a good time. If alcohol is their choice of doing that, just do not get behind that wheel after doing
Because
so.
the statistics are there that show that's almost like putting a gun to your head and pulling the
It
trigger.
is. It is.
Or certainly pulling a gun out on somebody else and pulling the trigger.
That vehicle becomes a weapon.
I was reading that, what is it, one out of 3 folks are going to be involved.
Are injured in a vehicle
Where
crash
drunk
involving
driving's
alcohol.
And then the statistics are, I think it was every minute somebody is going to be
Affected.
injured.
Yes,
And every 58 minutes someone is going to be killed.
that's it. And those stats are staggering, but they're true. And this is not something that we're looking for a cure for. The cure is here. So we don't have to.
That's a great point.
Yes, the cure is here, and it's just making a choice, making wise decisions, not to get behind that motor vehicle after drinking. And we would have so many lives saved.
Let's talk about the success of MAD.
Okay.
Because it is remarkable. I think you indicated earlier, 1980 was kind of the beginning date. It is a nonprofit, so donations are tax deductible.
Correct.
And it is now in every state of our union.
Yes, it is. MAD has an office in all 50 states and in some states that are not within the United States, Canada, and also in Japan. So we're there. It's just getting the message out to the public. And it's sad to say, but most times the volunteers that we have working with us are the people that are here to us, most of the ones that are victims.
Right.
We're trying to reach people before they become a victim.
And I read that the amount of deaths caused by drunk driving since 1980, because of the creation of MAD, has been reduced by 50%.
50%.
Saved, what was it, 320,000 lives.
So it shows you that it's working. We have made a vast difference. We're one of the largest nonprofit organizations against drinking and driving. And we have made a difference, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
And so, kind of, you indicated earlier, the focus is, one, to get to the kids before they start drinking and driving underage. And then for those who are of age,
Right.
just don't drive and drink.
Right.
And then those who get busted because they're drinking and driving and putting their own welfare in jeopardy and that of everybody else on the road, make them suffer consequences that protect everybody else and themselves.
That's true. One of the main protections that we have and that we're working on is initial interlock. And initial interlock is a device that is placed in your vehicle once you're convicted of a DWI. And also, you're required to have it if you refuse to blow once you're stopped on suspected drunk driving. There's a loophole in the law right now regarding the hardship component of the initial interlock, and we're working with the legislative this session to correct that loophole.
All right, let's kind of take this step by step.
Okay.
So if I'm driving and I get pulled over at a checkpoint, or I get in a wreck, or if I'm weaving and I get pulled over, and they determine that they believe that I'm under the influence, they can ask me to blow into a breathalyzer, and if I refuse and I lose my license, and if I do blow in it and I'm under .08, I'm okay, but if I'm over .08,
you're going to be
I'm
cited.
going to get charged with first offense driving under the influence. And so then you are plugged into the court system if you don't blow it.
Well, if you don't blow, it goes to the DMV.
Because they pull your license.
Right. And what is happening is that attorneys are telling their clients to wait 30 days to apply for hardship, because once they wait that 30 days, they're being allowed to get the hardship without having to have the initial interlock installed. What we're wanting, if you refuse, we want you to have that initial interlock installed before conviction because of the refusal. So once you refuse, we want that initial interlock put in before you can drive a motor vehicle.
So the consequences is not only that you lose your license, but if you are going to be awarded a hardship license, you're required to have that ignition stop, that thing that won't let your car crank.
If you blow and you're a .08, your vehicle's not going to start. And I know people say there's ways around it and someone can blow and you can start, but there's going to be a second blow once the car is rolling, and it's going to compute. The car will not stop because of the dangers, but it will record
that data.
And they will be able to find out and still cite them for that.
And I have read that particular piece of equipment, which has only come online, I saw that Louisiana has that equipment requirement.
Yes.
As of 2007.
We were one of the first 4 states, I think, that
finally we're on the top of a
list.
That's a good list.
On top of something good, correct.
All right, so what you're saying is, right now, if you do not blow, you lose your license, and you want to get a hardship, the only way you're going to get a hardship is if you get that piece of equipment in your car that will not let it crank if you've been drinking and you blow in it and it registers a .08.
That's correct.
And
it's to protect yourself and the public.
Right, and if you get the equipment in there, then you can get the hardship license and you can go to work or whatever justifies the hardship license.
Correct.
Okay. And then I've also read that this piece of equipment is, in varying states, required by the court system and the legislature to be used, depending on whether it's first offense or certain other consequences.
And it's required here too, once the conviction is made, also to have it installed as part of their probation, is to have it installed for a number of years, and to have it installed by a compliance installer so that it can be checked and verified that you are not drinking, and it records the number of attempts that are being made if you're drunk or if you're trying to start and you're intoxicated.
And I've read that over the 10-year use of this piece of equipment, they have stopped, vehicles have been prevented from cranking 2.3 million times.
That's correct. So can you imagine
how many lives have
how
been
many
saved
lives have been
because
saved?
of that?
That's it. And that's why we're big advocates for the initial interlock, because it works. It has been proven, data has shown us that in the attempts that people that do have it installed, if they're intoxicated, that vehicle is not going to start.
All right, we'll continue this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith, Valerie Cox of MAD. We'll be right back.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith with a Legal Lines tip for you. Document your claim. What do I mean? Whenever you present a claim, whether it's for injuries in an automobile collision or for a breach of contract case or a business claim, it all boils down to documentation and evidence. For example, when you go to trial, basically both sides are presenting their evidence of what they believe to be their case. For example, also, if you're involved in an automobile collision, document the event. Talk to all the parties who are involved, get their names, address, contact information, insurance info. Talk to the witnesses on the scene. Also get their contact information. Take photographs. With the phones we all have these days, everybody can take a picture and that paints 1,000 words. So document your claim. The Legal Lines tip from me, Locke Meredith, to you is document the claim.
This has been Legal Lines Tips.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Pleased to have on the show Valerie Cox. She is the Program Director for the state of Louisiana for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We're talking about the fact that we're in that kind of season of the year where folks are celebrating a lot of different wonderful events,
Yes.
but it also results in drinking and driving, and unfortunately a lot of deaths, thousands of deaths, tens or hundreds of thousands of deaths, and horrible maimings. And that's a cost to society, not only the victims and the loss of the person who's convicted and their families, but what I've read is there's a cost of estimated $500 for every single citizen of America.
That's it.
Because
So-
the system is so taxed by this.
That's it. Because you look at insurance and everything else that we're having to pay higher rates for because
Right.
of the high rates of DWI. So everybody is paying, even though that offender is the one that's out doing the crime. Everyone eventually ends up paying, and that's another thing. If we can get this message out and get people to realize on the highways of Louisiana and across the United States not to drink and drive, it will be a benefit to all, not only in saving lives, saving people from being injured, but also in cost effective for our insurance rates.
It's a great goal. So let's talk about each of the goals. One is to implement what we've discussed the last segment, the use of this extraordinary, really pretty new technology
Yes.
that allows our society to shut you down if you've been drinking.
That's it.
And you got it in the car. I've actually even read that some of the newer model vehicles contemplated coming
That's
out
our
are going to
future.
automatically
is to
have it in there.
cars
And
being
the
the
cars-
cure.
that's
That's
right.
the future of them.
So it's definitely the wave of the future.
Yes.
And fortunately, Louisiana has been on the forefront of using this equipment as a way of protecting the public.
Right.
And the victims and even the person who's the perpetrator of
That's
the crime.
right.
All right, so let's talk about how the company, or MAD, the organization, raises funds, because you talk about focusing on getting the right legislation. You got to get the legislators to agree to pass the bill, and then you got to educate the court and the judges on using the equipment, and then you got to deal with loopholes where people are figuring out how to get around it. Okay, we've done that here in Louisiana pretty daggone well. We've got one last loophole we've discussed,
Yes.
and we're working on that
Working
one.
on that.
All right, so let's talk about how do you get to the kids before they turn 21 and they're out celebrating and they want to get drunk and drive.
Okay, as you know, we're in prom season and graduation, so this is one of the times when we really focus on our underage prevention. One of the components of doing that is our Power of Youth. We have workshops.
And that's the name of it, Power
Well,
of...
we have Power of Parents, which is workshops for the parents.
Okay.
We have these parents attend these workshops, not just at prom and graduation, but all through the year.
All right.
We have someone in our office trained to put on a 30-minute workshop with, you can do a PTA with parents, you know, any association, teachers or whatever, and it gives them the tools they need to look for and to talk with youth about not drinking and driving.
So it educates them, I guess, with the facts that we've been discussing.
Yes.
And kind of gives them strategies or ways of
and
communicating
it gives ways of how it can fix the brain stems before the age of 21. I mean, it's just not a number that we picked out of the sky to say not to drink before 21. There has been scientific evidence that it can mess with the brain system if you are drinking before the age of 21. So that's why.
Really interesting, because I know I've read that about marijuana and such, and of course drugs, and
Yes.
alcohol is a drug, so it
Yes.
makes sense.
And
that
unfortunately, alcohol is one drug that is most prevalent over drugs.
and
or
society
anything
accepts
else.
it. It's
Yes.
legal.
Yes.
Is the bottom line.
And kids can get to it quicker than they can any other drug. So, and it is a high rate. And what we're trying to do is just educate them. First of all, you don't have to adhere to peer pressure, and that you can have a good time without having alcohol involved. So we, sit down and we talk with the parents, and we also have booklets that we give to the children. And in that book, it has stories of kids that went binge drinking and what happened. So we can put something real in front of them to
it's a
realize.
testimony of
Yes,
either
that-
the victim or the perpetrator, I
Right,
assume.
right. And it happens. Everybody, especially at this age, think that it's not going to happen to
Right,
me.
they're immortal.
But we have evidence that it will. We have victims that tell stories that say that it can happen to you, because nobody that has died from this, or even a drunk driver, I don't think they get in their vehicle and say, I'm going to kill someone
Right.
tonight. But once you take that first drink,
Your
you're
life's
not-
changed forever if you
Right,
crash into
right,
somebody and kill
right.
someone, forever.
That's
And not
it.
just your own life, but the life, obviously, of the victim and both families.
And that's correct. And I also want to say Power Talk 21 is something that is done nationwide.
Okay.
And it's a date set aside for parents to talk to their children about the effects of drinking and driving.
Okay, well, maybe we'll get a banner and put
Okay,
that on
great.
the show.
It's on our
And what again is the date?
It's April the 21st.
Okay, and
it's
then I
called
know
Power
there's a-
Talk 21. And on April the 18th, preceding to that date, MAD is going to hold a class free of charge to the public for parents to come in, or teachers, or anyone in the community to come in, and we're going to hold this workshop and give them the tools that they need, conversation starters, whatever they need to sit down and talk with their youth about not drinking.
So you give
before
them the
age of
information they
21.
need to convince their children
Yes.
this is not what you want to do,
Yes.
and then they give them the tools if they don't feel comfortable communicating
Right.
with their kids to communicate with
That's
them.
it. And we have all this, have the supplies at our office, or you can come to this workshop
Where is
on
the
the 18th.
office?
The office is located at 2644 South Sherwood Forest, and we're in Suite 123.
Okay.
So you can come to the office and pick it up, call us, we'll mail it to you, whatever. We just
And
want to make
it's-
sure.
It's also accessible on the website.
Online. You can go online and download it. We know many people are not computerized or not computer savvy, so we do have resources where we can get the material to you.
Okay.
We just want to get in as many hands of parents, teachers, our community that we can. So we ask that, first of all, come to the workshop. It's at the Goodwood Library on April the 18th, and it's going to be from 10 to noon.
Okay.
And if you can't attend that, get in touch with us, go online, just make sure that you have that material in hand so that you can sit down on April the 21st and speak with your
And is it just for parents or is it for the kids too?
The workshop is only for parents, for the
Okay.
parents to open that dialogue up with their children.
Okay, and is there any kind of function where the kids can come?
Not at for Power Talk 21,
Right.
but as I said, all through the year we have a Power of Youth booklet, and we do workshops in schools.
Okay.
We do.
And that was my next question. Y'all target the middle school,
and
high school kids?
is what we target. Yes.
Folks under 21?
Yes,
And
yes.
most likely to behave this way?
Correct. And we
sadly.
will go into some universities because we know a lot of kids at the universities are under 21.
That's right.
So we have had workshops there also.
And you've mentioned a couple times, but we need to make it real clear to folks that this is no charge. This
no charge.
is free.
Of charge.
This is trying to give you something that you can use
That's
to
it.
protect
the
your
materials
loved
are free.
ones.
The class is free. The emotional support that you may need from us, anything is free of charge. We're just trying to prevent any underage prevention for drinking, and if we can do anything to get through these children, we want them to enjoy prom, we want them to enjoy graduation, but we don't want any deaths.
Okay.
So,
All right. Now, I know that y'all have another function coming up because you got to have money to do this stuff. And again, it's a non-profit entity, and so any donations made are tax
It's tax
exempt. They can
deductible.
write them
Yes,
off.
yes.
But there's a function coming up called
Walk Like Mad.
Walk Like
It's
Mad.
our annual walk each year.
And
It's
what
gonna
date
be
is
at
it?
It's May the 6th.
Okay.
It's going to be at the Breck Park on Holland. We're asking you can go online at Walk Like Mad, download the Baton Rouge walk, go on and register, or just come out on walk day at 7:30 and register on site. You won't get a t-shirt that day, but we'll get one out to you. But if you register before April the 15th, we will have a t-shirt at the walk for you.
And so this is
and
kind
the
of
fee
similar.
is $20.
Okay.
So we ask that, everyone come out and support, and the victims will be there, and we'll have a victim survivor
Okay,
area.
we'll continue this on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines, Valerie Cox, the Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We'll be right back.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith with a Legal Lines tip for you. Never give a recorded statement or give a written statement without first seeing an attorney. Remember, you can always see an attorney for the most part free on the first visit. Get educated. Knowledge is power. Learn what the consequences are of the decisions. Learn what the issues are. And then if you feel necessary, give the recorded statement. Remember, in Louisiana, we have what's called comparative fault. Typically, what that means is a judge or jury is required to divide fault up amongst all the players to decide who pays what in damages. Recorded statements are often used in depositions and trials to argue that the victim or the plaintiff is partially at fault for their own damages to reduce the amount that they collect. So my Legal Lines tip from me, Locke Meredith, to you is don't give a recorded statement.
This has been Legal Lines Tips.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Pleased to have on the show Valerie Cox. She is the Program Director for the state of Louisiana for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Let's dive in. So we've kind of talked about how you deal with the legislature and the court system to make sure that the public is being protected by the use of equipment to prevent drunk driving.
Okay,
and
yes.
that's been very, very successful.
It has.
You've talked about how you're trying to get to the kids who are younger than 21 and teach them why they don't want to drink. Number one, it's illegal. Number two, there's ways to have other fun. And number three, you don't always have to do what the other dummies
Sure.
you know do.
True.
And you give the resources to their parents or supervising adults to communicate
Correct.
with them and kind of help them see the light, hopefully. Is there any program that's focused on the folks that are particularly focused on folks who are 21?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
First of all, I want to say for our heroes that are
Meaning the police officers, law
that are
enforcement.
out there protecting our roadways. You know, they're putting their lives at stake every day on trying to keep the roadways safe. And I want to say that MAD supports them 100%. And one of the ways of doing that is when they have a checkpoint, we will sometimes go out. We're bringing snacks for them or whatever to let them know that we support and appreciate what they're doing to keep our roadways safe.
Is there coordination between the law enforcement community and MAD when they're kind of putting out those checkpoints?
It's not a coordination as much as them always letting us
They
know.
do let you know,
Yes.
though.
Yes, they let us
Excellent.
know. They don't coordinate us. It was a good
Right,
date or
they get your
anything,
permission, right?
But
Right, I
they
got it.
always, let us know, and we're always have been welcome to be involved. And that's all over Louisiana, North Louisiana, Lafayette, and in the Baton Rouge, Tangipahoa area.
And
So,
again, you have offices in Baton Rouge and in
North Louisiana. We have two satellite offices
Okay,
in
there's
North Louisiana.
two folks up there, and then you got six
Six
folks
here.
here
And we
that are
cover the
permanent
whole
employees.
state of Louisiana.
You're dealing
Yes.
with, what,
Yes.
4 million, 5 million
Yes,
folks.
and we do have some faithful volunteers that are also helping us, but we're always open to have more volunteers.
So
to
how
come
do
on board.
how do folks volunteer to help? What roles are available to folks?
Oh, victim services is one role. We have victim services, which are victims advocates that go to court with victims, because many times when a person becomes a victim of DWI, they don't know anything about
No,
the
their
court
world's
system.
destroyed.
And their world is destroyed. They never set foot in the courtroom, most of them, so they don't know what's going to happen. And even though most courts have victims advocates, we're there for that particular victims. The victims advocate that works for the court is for
They're
every
dealing with
victim.
everybody.
So we are there just for that particular victim. We sit and we explain everything to them. We let them know what's going on, because a lot of them don't know what a motion is or what
Right.
a pretrial conference
Right.
is. And we're there to explain all that to them. And also to be a shoulder for them to lean on. We're available usually 24 hours. We have a helpline through MAD that they can call and talk, because a lot of times they just want someone to listen.
Right.
And that's what our services provide. We have volunteers that are trained to do this.
So how do you get trained? What do you have to go through?
You would have to be a victims advocate. That training actually has to come out of Dallas. You go there for a 2.5-day training, and part of it is online. But you have to be certified, because this is real intense training.
Right.
Because we're dealing with people that are going through a lot. So we want to make sure that
They got the tools.
they
know
have
what
the
to
correct
do.
tools to handle and not hurt a victim. So we make sure that they're trained correctly.
Is there coordination between MAD's victim services and our court system here in Louisiana?
No. We work for the same purpose, but not the same correlation. It's
Okay.
totally different, because our focus is primarily
Right,
on
you're
victims of
one-on-one
drunk driving.
relationship.
Nothing else, no other
Got it.
victims. So we're trained, and when we do this training, it's primarily just talking about the drinking and the driving, the effects of, and also what a victim is going through. And most victims, whether you're a victim of drunk driving or anything, it's the same, but we just tune in on the drinking and driving and the the hardship that they're going through.
And of course, court proceedings can allow, if the judge wants to, the victims to give testimony.
A victim's impact, so once a conviction is made,
That's right.
a victim is allowed to give a victim's impact statement. And we have booklets in our office to help them be able to coordinate this. Some don't need it, but many do. And we have that resource for them.
Gather their thoughts and
to
their
gather
emotions,
their thoughts,
to
or to tell them
communicate.
how to go and write without, you know, try to take some of the, because a lot of them, there's a lot of hatred going on at the time, and we try to help them to understand,
Process it.
underline, and process
Yeah,
it. So,
I understand.
and we also have our court monitors.
Let me ask you this question. If somebody needs that help, they just need to call MAD?
Call MAD, and we
Okay.
will give it to them free of charge again. We have the resource materials, booklets that help you to read, to understand, because a lot of people think I'm going crazy when I'm feeling these emotions. But when they read this booklet, understand it's an emotion that...
And does someone meet with them, or they come
Yes.
to you guys, or
We will go
there's a
and meet with them,
relationship
yes.
developed?
We won't go
Okay.
to the home usually, but we'll pick a neutral location, or they can come to the office.
Okay,
Yes.
excellent. All right, and what are the other services?
And the other services is our court monitoring program. We have 3 court monitors for the state of Louisiana, and what
Wow.
they do is go into the courts that are usually high with DWIs,
Right.
to make sure that the judges are imposing sentencing that are to our guidelines. And if we have a court that we see an issue with, we'll sit down with that judge and talk with them, and usually it helps.
So tell me about the guidelines. Is this something that's a national guideline?
Well, with
that's
us, we
put
want to make
together?
sure that, you know, the most feasible sentence is imposed.
Meaning
that they're,
feasible.
because for a, well, first of all, if it's a victim, court monitors don't do that, the victim services do. So for first and second, or even a fourth, there's guidelines according to the criminal code
Right.
that they should be sentenced to.
Right. You want to make sure that
We
happens?
want to make sure that happens. We want to make sure that if they're on probation, that they're being ordered to attend a victim's impact panel, that they're being ordered to go to a defensive driving class. We just want to make sure that, you know, that it's not being reduced to a reckless operation. And if we see a lot of reductions, we have an issue with that, and we'll sit down
So
and
it's
talk.
making sure these offenders suffer the full consequences of their
consequence of their
behavior,
behavior.
so that, once again, our society and general public is protected.
Correct, because we want them to realize good people make bad decisions, but there are consequences, and we just want to make sure that, you know, they know that there are consequences and adhere to those consequences.
And so the guidelines are really based on the legislation that sets forth the sentencing. Y'all are familiar with that.
Oh, yes,
And
yes.
then you're
We just-
checking, do y'all check all the jurisdictions, all the courts,
No,
or
not all
just the
courts.
hot spots?
Just mostly the hot spots.
Which
and
are
we
where?
have not
Baton Rouge, New
reached-
Orleans,
Well,
and
right now we have
Lafayette?
court monitors in Lafayette, Lake Charles, Baton Rouge, St. Tammany. There are some in North Louisiana, and I'm not a court monitor, so I'm probably leaving out several of them, but we have them throughout Louisiana.
You know, are these part of the staff format, or are these folks who volunteer?
staff.
Okay.
Yes, and we have, I think, 2 volunteers that do court monitoring, but it's predominantly by the staff, and there's only 3 staff that's doing the court monitoring portion.
And so how do y'all get the information regarding the sentencing? Is it public record, and y'all?
It's public record.
So y'all just get the data in and
Yes.
y'all analyze it at the office?
Yes. And then, like I say, they sit in many of the courts, and they're there to see it from beginning to end, what's going on with it.
And are the judges receptive when y'all
They
see
are.
some disparity?
They are. You know,
So there's
they may not
accountability.
always agree with us, but
Right.
they do sit down and talk with us, and we try to work it out. I mean, because I think for the most part, everybody wants the streets of Louisiana to be safer. So.
Okay. So tell me again about the walk, because that's coming up on April.
May the 6th.
May 6th, I'm sorry.
And it's going to be.
And we'll
at
see
the-
if we can put that banner up for that
Please,
too.
I would really appreciate
All right.
it. And it's going to be at the Breck Park on Holland.
Okay.
Registration the morning of will begin at 7:30. And I just want them to know that we're going to have plenty of food out. There are going to be vendors selling, and going to be vendors for free food. It's going to be vendors with different things to sell, as purses, jewelry, everything. It's a day for families to come together and be with one another that have been affected by drunk driving.
And you have the ability to have sponsors make donations
We
at
have
varying
sponsors,
levels, and y'all
yes,
recognize
yes.
them based
And we
accordingly.
recognize them on that day.
Valerie, very much appreciate you
Thank
coming
you,
in. This is
thank
Locke
you.
Meredith for Legal Lines. Our special guest, Valerie Cox, with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Thank you for being with us.